Welcome to the Philly Prime podcast. And the big story continues to be in Philadelphia, the mass shooting a week ago where 5 people lost their lives. Been a lot of talk about violence in Philadelphia over the past 2 years. No one better to talk about that than one of the city's top anti-violence advocates, Bilal Qayyum, who is the president of Father's Day Rally Committee. He's been there for 34 years, actively involved in projects to keep youth and other individuals out of the violent stream. Bilal, thanks for coming on the show again. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, Dave. I really appreciate you having me on to talk about this issue.
Bilal, just give me your overall reaction when you heard about this mass shooting in Southwest Philadelphia. By the way, carried out by Kim Brady character wearing a bulletproof vest, carrying an assault-type weapon and another handgun. 5 people were killed in total. One, it appears now, was killed 2 days prior and then went on a shooting spree 2 days later and killed 4 more. Bilal, just your thoughts. I'm sure shock ran through your body when this came out.
Well, I'm not going to say shock, Dave. Unfortunately, we have too many, not this kind of shooting, but we have too many shootings in the city of Philadelphia. I guess what I was more concerned about, and I talk about it all the time, is unfortunately, this young man who did this shooting, as you can see in this picture, he's a black man. There's a lot of black men in the city of Philadelphia who we work very closely with that are on the edge. They can explode. I hate to use this term, but I use it all the time. They walk around ticking time bombs. Mm-hmm. So if one issue can get them over the edge, then we see the action that this young man did. What was surprising about this, though, is in the past, they've been talking truthfully, black men or black folks usually don't commit these kinds of mass murders like that. Mm-hmm. He did. It's clearly that this man is totally unstable. The sad part is, from all the information we're getting now, this could have been prevented. Mm-hmm. He was walking around, it's been reported, in his house where he lives with his relatives or the people he lives with. He's been walking around with his bulletproof vest on and his guns for a while now. Mm-hmm. Somebody's walking around my house with a gun, assault weapon with a vest. I'm calling somebody because this person who's living in my house got issues. Yeah. If they had taken that action then, there's a good possibility this wouldn't have happened at all.
Yeah, he was openly talking about it apparently at the same time, and he was making posts on social media, vigilante type posts, things like that. You could almost see, you talked about ticking time bomb, that this was the quintessential ticking time bomb right there.
So if we pay more attention in our communities, in our households, of behavior that is, strange, let me use that word, or not the normal behavior of the person around us, mm-hmm. then we have to be able to say, look, that person needs help. Who do I reach out to? And hopefully they can get to him, get to him quick enough to provide help. And if that had happened, there's a great, great possibility that this shooting wouldn't have took place.
And you would agree that there are more resources now available through the police department and other programs,
well, not so much police,
people who are on the edge like that. Am I right?
Yeah, not so much the police department, but the Department of Behavioral Health in the city of Philadelphia and other agencies that are being funded to do that kind of work. And one of the things you always try to learn a lesson from every incident that happens, particularly negative incidents. And I hope that the city has learned a lesson that they got to do a better job of communicating with the citizens of this city of the resources that are out there that can help individuals like this.
Yeah, it sounded like this guy could have got some help through some of those programs. The police department even has a program now where they send mental health advocates out with the police on particular calls and things like that. Perhaps if the earlier shooting a couple of days before had been accurately reported to 911 and then followed up on by 911. I'm not saying who's to blame there. At this point, apparently it was north versus south on the street, and they were, many blocks off at the situation. Maybe this could have been prevented that way. We don't know that, but there are resources there now. A lot of money, $35 million last year put into programs, upgrades in the police department. I know you're agency is working real hard with young people and fathers to try and stop violence in the city, especially stuff like this. As you do say, African Americans are not normally involved in these kinds of shootings.
And that's why, yes, one of our major projects that we're working on is we have a project called Project Lifeline.
Right.
And what it is that we do group sessions for men. We have them come in a group, and we talk about the life issues and what's bothering them, how, what can be done. And if we find a young male, a male period, that we think needs help, we do the referrals. We refer them to Department of Behavioral Health. We have another program that we started called Form is Fathers on a Mission. And that program is we're working with fathers who lost loved ones to violence. Usually, fathers are not even being engaged when they lose a loved one. All the attention, which is understandable, is paid on mom, grandmoms, or whoever. Very seldom, nobody sits around and says to a father, "How you feel? What can we do?" So we got a group of fathers who lost. We got around 6 men we're working with now. All 6 of those men have lost loved ones to violence. One of them has lost 3 sons to violence. One of them has lost 2 sons to violence. One of the men, it's actually his son was killed in front of him when someone came to his house, rang the doorbell, asked to speak to his son. He called his son. His son came to the door, and the guy shot his son right in front of him.
Yeah.
You can't get any more traumatized than that.
No.
So we created this group, what's it called Form, Fathers on a Mission.
Okay.
And we're providing support. And we have a therapist and a psychologist who works with us to provide those support to those fathers, because they're all grieving just as much as the mother's grieving. And so that's got to be a major part about any activity we're going to do, Dave, moving forward in the city of Philadelphia. And I've been calling for a couple of years now. We need a healing campaign. Right. People are hurting. People are at work. The economy, is tricky. There's a lot of pressure. The peer pressure with young folks with social media. This whole new drill rap that people are not aware of. And for your listening audience, drill rap is basically rap music by rappers, but they actually in their rapping are talking about killing somebody. Yeah. They actually say in their rap, we're going to do this I'm going to shoot Dave. I might use some code words in my rap, but the bottom line is I'm rapping, I'm going to shoot Dave. Dave sees that rap and he's going to immediately respond, and that respond most like his gunplay. He's going to come after me, or his friends are going to come after me. That is happening more and more with young folks in our communities.
Bilal, you and I were talking last week, and you were telling me about another interesting thing you're doing. You're going out to the juvenile detention center and talking to young people who are under arrest for violent crimes sometimes, and you're trying to get in their psyche a little bit, trying to find out what is behind this, right? What is driving them? What is kind of causing them to go down this path? Talk to us a little bit about what you're hearing out there.
Well, we've been working at Juvenile Justice Center now for actually 4 years. We have a contract with the Department of Behavioral Health under the EMOP program called Engaging Men of Color. And so we go into Juvenile Justice Center once a week, and we engage the young men on their pods. The pods is where they're actually being held, where they live. So we go into the pods, not in a special room, but where they are actually living, and we have a conversation with them. And over the last year, we have seen most of the young males come in there having gun charges. So we're actually talking to the shooters and the potential shooters, or a lot of those young men have been shot themselves, been grazed, or been shot. So two of the things that are very important to me in this discussion with them is after we have it, the normal, what we hear about profile is real. Most of these young men live in a household where there's not a mother and a father. They either live with the mom or live with grandmoms. Some of them we run into do live single family houses with fathers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a profile that we constantly hear about. That's true. A lot of them have dropped out of school. City of Philadelphia, if you talk to the school superintendent, will tell you majority of youth that drop out of school are black males, or male of colors, a lot of Latino males. So we hear that. But the one thing I'm consistently hearing in the conversation with them when I leave is they really have a lack of hope, that they're going to make it in life. A lot of them, they took me a while to understand this, and I still don't totally understand it. A lot of them share with us that they don't believe they are going to be living to be 25, 30 years old. They're not going to live that lifespan because a lot of their friends they see have been killed.
Mm-hmm.
The environment they live in and the neighborhoods, they're seeing that. So they have this mindset. I'm going to live for the day and the moment right now because I might not live to be 20 to 25 years old. Once you have that mindset, then you have a different set of thinking.
Yeah.
A lot of young men, unfortunately, that's the way they think. So they don't value their own lives, so they're not going to value lives around them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a consistent message I hear from them. And we try to counteract it and talk about they need to look at the future. What are they going to do future once they either go home or go into placement? They need to focus on what are they going to do to make the changes in their lives, changing their mindset so they won't return to become part of juvenile justice or the justice center period. A lot of statistics will show you a lot of young men that are sitting in prisons were actually did juvenile time. So our whole program is trying to break that cycle. We are now working with the families of those young males, trying to assist those young males. Because when you talk to some of these families, it's clear you might not like it, but you can see why they're there where they are because of the environment they grew up in particular the household they come from.
Yeah. Bilal, I know you're big on gun buybacks. I want to talk a little bit about guns because the two guns used by Kim Brady character were ghost guns, according to the district attorney's office and the police department. One was an AR-15 assault type weapon. That basically a ghost gun comes in parts, not all together, and you put it together. You can even build it off a 3D printer. Both guns, a handgun that he had was a polymer 89 millimeter, and the AR-15, both were ghost guns, according to the city. And just to give you an idea on the numbers, have gone up dramatically. The number of ghost guns used in crimes in Philadelphia, 575 shootings were linked to ghost guns. I know you're troubled by the amount of guns on the street. That's why you do the gun buybacks that you do, which are always very successful, 100 plus guns most of the time. Your folks take off the street. What's your thoughts on these ghost guns? And then the city now has announced a plan to sue the two biggest makers of ghost guns to stop them from selling them in Philadelphia because you can't trace them. There's no serial number. You can't even detect. If they had not caught this guy and they recovered the guns, they would have never been able to even identify who had these guns.
Yeah, ghost guns are a big problem, Dave. Big problem. We have collected ghost guns in our gun buyback.
Right.
And what I found out from the police blew my mind. It only costs you $35 to make a ghost gun.
Mm-hmm.
$35. You get the parts, like you said, you get a printer, you can make them. $35 to make a ghost gun. And they're hitting these streets like I don't know what. I think it was a great move by the city to decide to step out and make that suit against the companies. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it's way more companies than what they sued.
Yeah, they're suing the two biggest ones because they believe that's where the flow is coming from. Yeah. And just so everybody knows, when you buy a ghost gun, there is no background check. And that is the basis for the city's lawsuit. They believe, according to federal law and state law, you have to have a background check before you can get a gun. In these cases, with the ghost guns, you do not.
And I know some discussion federally that maybe change that law. I believe Biden's talking about some kind of federal bill or legislation to address specifically the ghost guns. Because if you think about it, I don't have to go to a gun shop now and buy a gun. I'd be curious, Dave, we're having this discussion. to talk to the gun shops and see what the economic impact on ghost guns on those gun shops are now.
Yeah.
The regular hunters or the people want to buy a regular gun, they're
Yeah.
going to go to a gun shop. You go to Oaks, Pennsylvania, it's packed with folks.
Yeah.
But now with ghost guns, even young folks can make them. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be you're making a gun and the young person's going to buy it on the streets.
Yeah.
They got a computer, they get the parts. You could buy the parts online that you mentioned. They can make, the young folks are very savvy with technology now.
Yeah.
So they can make ghost guns. So we
And
got
the
to
AG's
figure out.
office, the Attorney General's office and the District Attorney's office has a gun violence task force
Yeah.
and a gun task force. They have been finding more and more of people when they raid these houses. There'll be like 50 empty boxes from the parts that came of a ghost gun, and those ghost guns are literally being assembled in that house and then sold on the street like that. And that's how so many of them are showing up in the mainstream. Like I said, 575 last year were linked to shooting crimes.
And the very sad part about this is, how do you control it? Even with guns, us pushing for gun legislation about background checks, the number of guns can be sold, lost and stolen. Ghost guns don't fit in any of those categories.
Yeah.
And more of the ghost guns are being used on the streets. It's the more in danger we are as citizens. So it's clearly this issue really has to be addressed, and we got to figure out some creative ways to deal with it.
Let me ask you, Bilal, Sherelle Parker looks like the favorite now to be the next mayor in Philadelphia because Democrats have a 7-1 voting ratio in Philadelphia. She's up against David O. Your thoughts on her potentially coming in November? And a lot of people I'm talking to believe she can make a real difference, that people will stand up or sit up and listen to her and some of the things she wants to do. And she's come out very strong against gun violence.
I think Sherelle is going to be a great mayor. I've been knowing her for years. I believe that she's really concerned about neighborhoods. So she will be spending more and more emphasis on neighborhoods than we've seen in a while, Dave.
Right.
I'm not going to name any other mayors, but we're going to see a lot more emphasis put on neighborhoods that we haven't seen in a while. Neighborhood development, developing and supporting commercial district, which actually supports more jobs. I know that former Councilwoman Parker is going to be doing a lot of concentration on that. She is also going to be, even though there's support. Now, this is interesting. On the campaign, she talked more about police and getting police involved in the streets, but they didn't endorse her. All right, which kind of strange to me, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yes, sir.
So she's not anti-police.
No.
She's a strong supporter of police, and police.
She wants more police, a lot more.
She wants more police. She wants to put more police on the streets. So I think that when she's elected, and she's going to be our next mayor. I know Councilman O and stuff, but she's going to be our next mayor.
Yeah.
That she's going to really be a good mayor in the right frame of mind of where she could do some great work in communities and stuff. Now, saying that, Dave, we also got to be some strong support of hers. We got to have this strong relationship between communities, businesses, and the mayor's office. So people can't put all on Sherelle Parker as the mayor. We got to step up as citizens and do the work we got to do. I do not hesitate to talk about two issues, and I get criticized on this, but I'm old enough and been around enough to understand criticism is part of life.
Yes, sir.
One of the problems with violence in the city of Philadelphia is what I call white institutional racism. When you and statistically, I could back that up. We have the highest unemployment rate in the city of Philadelphia, black males, jobless rate, education problems. All those problems are directly a result of folks making decisions that is not benefiting, let's say, the black community. So we still got a big problem in this city with racism. Once again, folks, when I say it, folks say I'm making excuses, I'm the victim. That's crap. Historical and statistics back me up in that argument. But saying that, Also a big believer that, particularly around the violence, most of the violence, unfortunately, because of what I just said about what I really believe, because of white institutional racism and self-drivenness, I also believe very strongly we got to solve the problems. So we, when I'm saying we, the Black community, got to take ownership of the problem. Example, I got really involved in this violence issue back in the early 70s, working with Queen Mother Fatah in West Philadelphia with the House of Mosher, her and her husband, Dave Fatah.
Uh-huh.
In the 70s, we had a major gang problem. Well, 50s, 60s, but in the 70s, we were averaging 60, 70, 90 gang deaths a year. When the community took ownership, organized, and when I was working at House of Mosher, that we did what we call no gang war conferences. And one we had a post out called No Gang War in '74. And from the early 70s, we were organized in community. That's when crisis intervention was formed and now called PAN. That's when you had other groups. You had a woman from North Philadelphia named Jean Hoskin. Jean and other mothers used to go on the corners with their broomsticks and chase their sons off the corner. We took ownership. In 1979, there was 0 gang deaths in the city of Philadelphia. There was deaths in the city, homicide, but they were not gang deaths because we took ownership as a community. We organized and we dealt with the problem. So I'm a big.
And you think that has to happen here?
I'm a big believer, even today, different times, and we talk about ghost guns, we talk about the rap stuff, but I'm still a big believer. We take ownership of the problem, and we work in it, and the police got to support us. Back then, Dave, some of you listening, a lot of you listening audience know Frank Rizzo. Rizzo and them were enemy with us, against us, trying to stop violence in the city. That might sound strange, but they were not supportive of the anti-violence, anti-gang movement back in the 70s. So now we had to take ownership because we didn't have the support of the police. Today, we have the support of the police. Different times, different ways. So, and the police need us just as bad as we need the police.
They say that all the time.
Because they're the victim. I mean, they could get shot.
Every press conference, at the end of the press conference, they talk about the community stepping up, giving them information. When they get information from the community, they get help from the community, they solve the crime, they make arrests.
And more, if you're noticing, more and more from the community are stepping up.
Yes.
So this whole thing about the community not getting them information, to a certain extent, but a lot of community are giving them information.
Yeah. I think it definitely has improved. I don't think there's a debate about that.
So, I mean, we all, look, this is an issue right now we all have to work on. I talk to business people. Remember, I used to work for the city of Toronto Conference. Yes. I know a lot of business and corporate leaders and stuff. And I tell them, if they don't work with us, this city is not going to move forward. There was a national report done on the economic impact of violence. Philadelphia was part of that report. They did 10 cities. We cut violence in the city of Philadelphia. The economy and the citizens saved, let's say we cut violence by like 10 to 15%. We're saving around $30-40 million, which means you and me live in the city, you're paying taxes. That would be money we can lower our tax base. If we could do like 25% cut in violence in the city, we're talking about over $200 million. That's going to be money in the city carpet that could do more housing, other social service providers. So there's no excuse now where everybody, all private sector, public sector, community-based, all are not working together. And that's what I'm constantly talking about. How can we work together and support each other, really make the city of Philadelphia the kind of city that I love and still want to live in this city. I know people moving out, but we got to do something to really make the difference in the city of Philadelphia.
Well, there is a little bit of a difference, and let me kind of finish up the broadcast here with some pretty good numbers from the police department. And, it's a cyclical thing. Sometimes every 2 or 3 years, the numbers go up. Every 2 or 3 years, they start to come down. But I'm interested to get your reaction. Murders are down 21% so far this year. Shootings are down about 24%. Shooting victims are down 17%. Violent crime across the board is down 8.29%. Carjackings are down. We had a rash of those the last 2 years. The only thing that's really up significantly is auto thefts, up almost 100%. 12,000 stolen cars this year. But let's end this with your thoughts on the numbers, at least starting to come down.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good sign. I don't necessarily get over excited about them because
Mhm.
all you need is a couple more weekends where you
Mhm.
got these 7, 8, 9 murders in one weekend. Those
Yep.
numbers pop up. The best example I used years ago, the numbers were going down, and we had Lex Street.
Yeah.
8 people were killed in one night.
In one
We could,
house.
I mean, we're only in July. We still got the rest of this month, August, September. I mean, hopefully the numbers will stay where they are or fall even lower. But I want to see what those numbers are at the end of the year. We
Yeah.
are on a trend, in all fairness, that the numbers are going down.
Mhm.
A lot of that has to do with the communities and all these great community organizations that I work with that are out there doing this work every day now in the streets, talking to young males, talking to folks. Those groups out there are the ones who really begin to make the difference. The reason why we're seeing the numbers down. It's
Yeah.
not necessary. It's not the police.
Hmm.
Not alienating the police because I
Yeah.
work very closely with them.
I do
But
know that.
I really believe the numbers are going down because of the organizations in this city that are out there every day doing great work, reaching young folks, reaching folks. Period. That's the reason why the numbers are going down.
The
The
message is
city
starting
has
to sink in.
the city has to, yes, city has to now focus and really support those groups now.
Yeah.
This don't blanket fund groups. There's certain groups out there in the streets doing great work. City needs to really give them the resources to work it. Like I'm working, and we're getting more resources than we got before. I'll be honest with that, and I appreciate it. But when I work with the young folks in JJSC, once again, Dave, I'm talking to these guys that are doing the shooting.
Yeah.
So more resources I have to work with them, helping them get their act together, helping them to go back to school or get jobs. That's the reasons why we're beginning to see these numbers drop now.
Okay. Bilal, as always, you're a fountain of information. I love having you on the show because you bring it to us right from the street, right from the Juvenile Justice Center, right from the organizations that are on the ground, the boots on the ground that are trying to make a difference here. And I greatly appreciate you coming on the show again.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me on. Best of luck to you and the family, and hope everybody's fine in the city of Philadelphia. I'm very confident and optimistic
Yes.
that by the end of the year, those numbers you just gave about numbers coming down, I think it's going to happen. But at the same time, been out here too long to understand that it could go the other way.
My blessing and my prayers
Okay.
to you too. You know that every single day out there, you're out on the front lines doing the work. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
All right, Bilal, thanks again. That's Philly Prime for this week, folks. Stay tuned for another episode next week, and thanks for listening.